There's chapter 33, and this chapter ended up being a bit longer than I originally intended. There's only 4 scenes in it, but they all just sort of tended to expand. I ticked off a number of things I wanted to in this chapter. Poor old Richards. The body count increases by 1, and Richards is gone on her way to the morgue, as hinted at earlier when she came across the morgue. Also wanted to remind people of Ms. Aronson, the chief engineer, and her physicality, and we got into Mr. Sinclair's head a little bit, who is cowardly, but he's cowardly for good reason. He's got a family who he loves, and he never signed up for this. Poor old Gottmund, of course, lost his best friend in this chapter and has subsequently been knocked out. Also, during the writing of this, actually, it occurred to me that we hadn't actually spent any time in any of the cabins on the ship, which goes way back to an earlier idea that I had when I was first coming up with the idea for the whole story about the pitch battles and the running battles, and then the two sides taking a breather in all of this stressful battling in the luxurious presidential suite on a cruise ship, and while saying stuff like "damn war is hell." Another champagne? Yeah, don't mind if I do. So the putting Mr. Ibarra and Devereux into the luxury cabin with the sleeping Gottmund while they wait for the matebots to come back also gives them a chance to interact a little bit, and I'm trying my hand at this burgeoning would-be romance between the two of them. This chapter was originally longer than that. There's another little couple of scenes which checking in with another character, which I've just bumped to a later character, so a later chapter I should say. So yeah, it's always a juggling act, this thing about who we spend time with and why. The other thing I wanted to get across in this chapter was, yes, it's another gunfight, but given that Captain Singh doesn't have eyes on it, I wanted to sort of, if I could, make it a little bit suspenseful, given that they are only getting, because they have audio only, they're only getting little bits and pieces of the picture and so putting it together, so just a different way of conveying yet another gunfight on the symphony. So there we are, that's this week's chapter. Another life lost, and a romance beginning, and Gottmund knocked out cold, and the engine room held it remains in the hands of the symphony crew. The pirates are not able to infiltrate it, so a minor loss there for the pirates. Speaking of the pirates, I've got my second image back from the graphic designer as part of the cover for the book of this. You may recall from an earlier video diary entry, I've been trying to get the images for the cover sorted. I found a really great graphic designer over in Venezuela who designed the Symphony of the Stars for me, and made it look really great, better than I imagined. And now I've asked her to also do a design for the Cheeky Albert, the pirate ship, approaching the Symphony of the Stars. My idea for the cover of the book is that we see the Symphony of the Stars and we see the Cheeky Albert approaching it, sort of going away from the camera towards the Symphony of the Stars, if that makes sense. So I asked her to design what she thinks the Cheeky Albert looks like. She's come back to me. I've had a couple of notes and revisions, and this is the design I'm going with for the Cheeky Albert, bearing in mind that it's going away from us as drawn here. We're seeing the rear of it as it travels away from the camera, for want of a better term. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the terrifying pirate ship known as the Cheeky Albert. There it is, heading off to attack the Symphony of the Stars. It looks a little cartoony and a little funky and a little homemade, which is the idea, because the Symphony looks so sleek and designed and elegant. I wanted a real juxtaposition, so happy with that. So now the plan is to put the elements all together and get the final image for the cover of Symphony there. Cheeky Albert attacking it against a lovely star field or a planet or two, you know, a big space background. So work proceeds apace. Better get back to it now. Happy New Year. Hope 2019's been good for you, and I will see you again in 2020.